Jon Lawrence here with Raider Boats. We're here to give you the top 10 reasons that makes this coastal series best in class. Number one on our list is bow shear. Bow shear means the slope from back at the cabin up to the forward point of the bow. What you're gonna see with all of our Raider boats on every size is we like to roll that boat, the bow up on the boat, to give you a much higher presentation. The reason why is when you are in rough water, you can't always go super fast. So if you're offshore and you're coming in, you get caught in bad weather, you're gonna be dropping your speed down. And when you get subplaning speeds into speeds 9, 10, 11 knots, what happens with most boats is they want to nose down. When you're up on plane, everything's going fast. Everything's always it can always be proud. You can trim your engine and really bring your nose up. But when you're going at lower speeds, you have less manipulation you can do to the bow. So what happens is a lot of noses drop down and the presentation just changes. So you have a much higher possibility of taking water over the bow in rough water scenarios. So that higher bow shear, that rolled upward bow, you can see where it starts here. It's right here on my shoulder. Then it comes up and it's almost the top of my head. And so much higher presentation, much better big water performance and protection for you on the bow, keeping you from stuffing the nose in big water. And so that's a big water design style, and that's true on our 21-foot Delta all the way through our Sea Raider series. Our offshores are built with a bigger bow that kind of starts way further back, but you're gonna see a noticeable hook to these noses, and that's super unique with our boats. So now we're on to number two. All right, number two that I have for you guys is a chine weld out on your extrusions. Very common is our design on upper gunnel extrusions and then lower chine extrusions. It's a great way to build a boat. So it's a slotted channel, so it's an extrusion, meaning it's a custom piece that gets extruded and it's all aluminum. And it's got a slot on the top edge or on the upper gunnel extrusion. It's on the lower edge. And then 90 degrees of that going in, there's another slot. And your gunnel slides in on the side, and then your side sheet, excuse me, this way, on the chine, your side sheet, it slides over top of your side sheet. And so what we do is you typically weld it up on the inside. Same thing on the chine, it's got a slot where your side sheet slides into, and it's got another slot where your bottom sheet slides into. And you weld on the inside of both of that. Most manufacturers are welding just on the inside, and that's structurally, that's sound, that's great. There's no problems with that from a structural significance. Where you get into is if you're using the boat in saltwater or alkaline environments that can create some corrosion issues, you're trying to mitigate that with trying to prevent crevice corrosion. So if you look down those boats, and if you're seeing this, you're probably at a trade show, just take a look. Look at aluminum boats with a chine extrusion, and you're gonna see little gaps forming between the plate because you can't get it perfect. And so what you do is we weld that out. And so there's two ways to weld. You can drag weld a weld all the way down it, or you can dime stack it. We choose to dime stack it. It looks really good, but it really fills in that crevice. But that's happening top and bottom. And so that's gonna prevent any corrosion from crevice corrosion, and it's gonna really protect your paint on the side of the boat. We're also gonna be able to do a paint package all the way down and not worry about corrosion working its way up the paint line. It also is gonna give you a better product. Are you gonna have a side sheet completely corrode from crevice corrosion? Likely not. It's very uncommon, but you will get surface corrosion that will wreak havoc on a painted surface. On a painted surface. And so keep that in mind. That's something unique to us. And the thing that allows us to do that, I'm gonna jump into right here with number three, which is your plate thicknesses. And so with Raider, you're gonna find all of our boats are very similar. From our 21 Delta all the way to our 290 Sea Raider, we're using 1/4 inch bottom. And this is on a, like I said, 21-foot boat to 29-foot boat. I don't know if the camera is going to catch this very well, but the thickness of this is 1/4 inch plate. Comparatively, most manufacturers are using this 190 plate. And this 190 plate, you can see the difference of thicknesses. The 190 plate is what you're going to see on the bottom of a majority of your boats, 24 foot and under. And then you get into side sheets. And so in the side sheet range, at Raider, we're using 160. That plate thickness is very unique for this size of boat. That is 125. You can see the difference between the two materials. And the 125 is gonna be a lot more temperamental with heat. This 160, just having a little bit more thickness to it, is for one gonna be far more rigid, far more stronger if you're gonna impact a dock or hit something pretty hard. But the biggest thing is it handles heat. when you're welding out aluminum, that heat starts going all the way up the side of the sheet. If I've got somebody welding that chine extrusion down here, I can hold my hand on the side sheet and you will feel the heat, and it'll get hotter and hotter the more they weld. As that's happening, the aluminum is wanting to move. It's shrinking, it's contracting, and it's doing its own thing. And so 160 side sheet is a really big deal for what we do weld out wise. It allows us to weld out. It allows us to do a welded logo here like you're seeing here. That's why you see most manufacturers do just a sticker right here, or if they have a metal sign, it'll either be stuck on or be just spot welded on the inside, plug welded or something, but you're not going to see a perimeter weld around it. We can do that because of the thickness of our side sheets, which means it's just going to be a much more robust boat. The bottom thickness, where that comes into play, is so stout. This is what you're going to find on 35-foot boats. You can cruise around the show, find boats that are 34, 35, more custom boats. This is going to be a common bottom thickness on those boats. We do it all the way down to 21 feet. Do you need it? Not necessarily. However, weight. This is something that people try to pride themselves on with aluminum boats. Oh, they're lighter. That's going to make it better. Lighter doesn't necessarily mean it's more fuel efficient. Lighter just means it's going to ride harder. And so weight is really important. Basics of physics. And so we're looking to build up weight in the boat, but we're also doing it by giving you something that's so bulletproof and strong that you impact a deadhead while running through a sound or a bay or whatever. It's going to deflect off of it. It's not going to do damage. A thinner bottom is going to allow for more flex, and that added flex is just going to fatigue. So that 1/4 inch bottom is a huge deal, and it's really going to give you a much better product. Now on to number 4. Number 4 is welded through holes. Right here on the side of the boat, you've got this welded opening. That's one through hole. You're gonna see a lot of boat manufacturers are gonna have a plastic through hole, or you might see like a chrome bezel over top of a plastic through hole, or possibly Marlon is another material. Rarely are you gonna see on the production side of things where you got welded through holes. And this is really unique. This is only one welded through hole, but inside there's a lot going on. So we have this guy right here, which is what we call our manifold system. This is what you're seeing welded on the outside of the boat. This pipe comes out of this box gets mounted, so you have a downward angle that collects all of this, and everything high loops in. So this right here is actually for a pro fish. This is not for a coastal. So it's got 2 inlet ports. So this fits on a coastal and a delta. This is 2 inlet ports right here for your bilge pumps. On the coastal, there'll actually be 3. This is a little bit bigger. There'll be 3 inlet ports because you have 3 bilge pumps on a coastal. And this is your fish box pump. So this is all the pumps that need to expel water out of the boat, all pile into this box. This box, with these pumps rolling full tilt, will drain fully, and there'll be no resistance on it. And so all of your through holes get welded through here, and all your lines come in, they high loop down, one through hole. You don't have mechanical fittings. You don't have guys drilling through your boat while it's in the factory, where it's causing you paint problems and potential issues with mechanical fittings. Also, they won't break. But this is above the water line. We're taking this level of protection above the water line. Below the water line, it steps up a little bit more. That's where we get into this. This is what's called a standpipe. You can see the pipe comes slightly through the bottom here to meet the bottom of the boat. It's fully welded. This top plate here is 1/4 inch thick. This gets fully welded to the perimeter of the boat, and you have these gussets. Kind of looks like a rocket. This gets welded down into the boat. This one's got an angle to it for the location that it gets mounted. But when this gets welded, this pipe can't be broken. You can't really get into it to put enough force on it, but it fully protects that fitting. This is below. This is on the bottom of your boat. I want to make sure that whatever is welded or mechanically fastened at the bottom of my boat is so stout and sound that I have zero concerns of fatigue and failure. This pipe is also not Schedule 40. It is a Schedule 80 pipe. We thread the top edge, and on top of this, we thread on a stainless steel shutoff valve. So you have a valve that, should you want to disconnect the hose, or should your hose fail, you don't have water freely flowing into it. You shut the valve off and it's done. If you leave your boat moored in a marina, this is a big deal. You go out of town, you're on a trip, shut the valve off. Big failure on boats that are moored is typically an inlet point like this, either breaking at the through hole or a hose coming undone or a hose fatiguing. This allows you a stainless steel, heavy stainless steel shutoff valve that allows you to shut that ball valve and keep it there. The other thing that we do is we weld on this guy. So this is a standpipe through hole for a washdown pump. This gets welded to the bottom of the boat. Then the bottom of the boat welds around this perimeter here. That seals it off completely. And then this is called a scoop strain, and we weld it. just like that. So what happens is when you're traveling forward, as this is welded, now your water is being forced into this point, and it's actually carried further forward, but it's getting forced into this strainer, and it's forcing the water up into the through hole. So that allows you, while you're underway, to have full access to your washdown pump. If you have a live well pump or a bait tank or something, and we're pulling off of that as well, it's gonna always supply water to that. Otherwise, if it was just a pipe that was welded on the bottom of your boat, it has a chance of possibly not picking up water. The suction of the water around it will actually draw water out of the through hole or stop it, or vapor lock it essentially. And so by having this forcing up into the through hole allows your bait tank to constantly supply water. So if you've got 2 scoops of anchovies, you're out albacore fishing, you're gonna be able to keep them alive, because if you lose that water supply, what you're losing is you're gonna lose all your bait as well. And so this scoop strain, as simple as it seems, really saves your bait, and it also gives you full water supply at any time. So I think that was number 4. We're on number 5. All right, we got number 5 here. Kind of hard to see, we're at a show, so bear with me. We got stairs in the way and whatnot. Offshore bracket. There's a lot of ways to design this in boats, and you're gonna see a lot of different concepts, but you gotta think of buoyancy. So think of, you're entrapping air within a chamber, and that's gonna be flotation. You're gonna have buoyancy off of that. The wider your offshore bracket, the more buoyancy you're gonna create. Hang with me, I can geek out on this a little bit too much, to be frank, but the design of our offshore bracket actually starts at the hole in the front. I'm gonna take you back to about 1993, when Raider first designed an offshore bracket. It was full width like this, it was the full size, and it created so much buoyancy that it drove the nose down. And the discovery of offshore brackets and how to do this, and just fine tuning through the process of figuring it out. Mike Melby, the original designer of Raider boats, he then took a 3-inch hole saw and started punching holes in the side of the boat. In '93, there was nobody else building offshore brackets. And so it was such a new concept, he had to figure it out. And so he created so much buoyancy, it drove his nose down. That wasn't good. So he put a hole saw through the side of it, allowed it to flood, allowed it to freely drain out. And that's how they built offshore brackets. I have guys in our shop that was building offshore brackets at that time that we were putting holes in the side of it. And so the main transom on the back of the boat forward here in front of the engine, that was fully welded out. And that left this back end allowed to flood, so it doesn't have that buoyancy. Fast forward to now, we learned a lot. So Mike, within a short period of time, learned that he needs that buoyancy in the stern. He likes that bracket design for how it planed out and how it ran, but he needed the buoyancy in the bow to counteract the stern. So that's where it starts in the bow. Our bows are deeper. We carry them deeper. We carry the V of the cut further forward to create more buoyancy in the front that really levels the boat out. And so we have so much stern lift in the back, and we have to counter it in the front, or makes our holes deeper, a lot more aggressive, which gives us a better cut. But that all starts in the transom. The other thing you're gonna notice with our offshore brackets is how wide they are. They're full width. We taper them a little bit for spray, but that full width offshore bracket gives you maximum buoyancy on the outside edges, which is really gonna promote stability. The other thing it's gonna do is lift. So when you power up and you throttle up, these props are big. They have a lot of prop torque, and they're gonna try to suck that stern down. And that's gonna give you a ton of bow rise. If you've ran a lot of boats, you're gonna see that a lot of noses, they come up on end and they kind of slowly fall on plane. This boat's gonna come up a little bit, but for the most part, it's gonna shoot forward because you have so much buoyancy back here that's counteracting that prop pulling you down, and it's transitioning that into a forward momentum and forward push, which really gives us a unique design to our offshore bracket. The other thing is cool, little features here, but on the side here, you normally see for majority of your dive ladders, I'm gonna have Rosario come in close here. You see typically on the corners where you have this ladder sticking up, or it lays flat on the deck here, or it's just in the way. We've designed it in the offshore bracket. This is a fully chambered offshore bracket. I mean, this creates about 1,800 pounds of buoyancy back here, and it's sealed. We pressurize it. We actually put an air pressure to it. It holds 2 PSI, and we maintain that pressure for, I think it's 10 minutes on our testing to make sure that we've matched the fact that it is chambered and it's fully sealed. And then this is fully welded in when we do that. So that gives us this pocket. So we call it a pocketed swim ladder, and it recesses right in the boat, stows away. You need access to it, falls right down. Super simple, really cool design, out of sight, out of mind, easy to stow, easy to deploy, and just comfortable to use, very simple. That's a cool feature of this boat, and it's standard on all the boats. We don't have this optional dive ladder or swim ladder or whatever. This thing Right here is fantastic. All right, so now we're on to number 6, anodized railing and anodized rocket launchers. Anodized, if you're not familiar with it, it's a process of, well, in this one in particular, this is what's called bright dipped anodized. And it's a process of micro polishing and then doing a clear anodized layer. Anodizing is so much stronger than paint. It doesn't flake away like a powder coat will. It is a maintaining of a high finish level. And it gives you a really good solid stainless steel look. On aluminum boats, you know, stainless steel looks beautiful, but the problem is stainless and aluminum don't go hand in hand. And so they are dissimilar metals if you're in an alkaline environment. And so we build boats for both freshwater and saltwater. Saltwater is our predominant focus, so that's what we're gonna take into account. So we're not gonna bolt rails on. That's gonna become a corrosion point that's very well known in this industry of wreaking havoc on boats. If you're bolting them on, they loosen, they start leaking, and they cause and wreak all types of havoc on stainless steel bolted on rails. So we do bright dipped anodized railing that is fully welded on. So we train our crew how to weld anodized aluminum, and so you got welded points, you don't have any hardware, but you can see the finish level of all of these rails and these rocket launchers. It's very bright, very shiny. That's gonna give you a presentation of the boat that really pops and looks really good. That's super unique without having bolts and hardware. Every other boat manufacturer, if you're in a trade show seeing this, which is what we're really shooting this for. If you're in a trade show seeing this, you're gonna go look around at all the other boats, aluminum boats with rails. You're gonna see Schedule 40 aluminum pipe with like a mill scale finish that looks brushed. That's done with sandpaper, and you just rub sandpaper down the rails. It's actually called Scotch-Brite, and you can have different finish levels, and it kind of gives it a consistent, uniform, dull finish. Within a couple weeks in the use of salt water, it starts getting kind of blotchy and chalky looking because it oxidizes. Aluminum's natural way to protect itself is through oxidation. This is protecting that aluminum, not allowing the salt water to ever get to it by giving it that hard protective layer on the outside. This is what you see on yachts in Florida. There's big operations that build tuna towers and T-tops and all types of stuff, really heavily across the US, but heavily on the East Coast. And so this stuff is very, very well known, very well used. This is not something new on the market by any means. But I could tell you this is probably one of the first aluminum boats doing it. And so that's something unique to Raider. You're not going to see that anywhere else in the show. And it's going to give you a lasting finish. It's going to last for years and years. And it's really going to elevate the product for you for long term. So if you're thinking about resale value on the boat, which is something always to keep in consideration, because here in a couple of years, as you become a professional fisherman, you're going to want a little bigger boat. And we're going to be here for you. And so making sure you can get top dollar for your boat on a resale is going to be super important. And the way to do that is by maintaining a high quality finish level on the boats. And so we're going to elevate everything we can, starting off with that anodization. So here we're going to move on to number 7. All right, now we're on to number 7, welded overhang. You have a 30-inch overhang that comes off the back of the boat. I'm a 6-foot individual, and I've got plenty of headroom. This is a 2584 coastal, and there's lots of room underneath this. But the nice thing is, if it's torrential downfall and we're trying to troll kings, I got a place to hide. I can, if I'm driving the boat and I'm trolling, I can literally stand here right at the second station, which I do often, and I'm underneath this overhang. If I'm a passenger, I can kind of tuck myself in deep, right against this bulkhead, and kind of just lean up against something as I'm watching rods as we're trolling around. Makes it super comfortable, but I'm out of the weather, I'm out of the sun if it's not raining. I've got some shade here, it's really nice. In fact, fluffy fellows like me, we get pretty hot offshore, and so I like to troll, typically downhill, but which is with the current. Not always can I do that because it puts the sun right in my face. So then I turn the boat around. I'm always in the shade. That overhang works out fantastic for me. But it keeps you out of the weather. It's super handy. This is something that can hold some weight. It's fully integrated into the cabin. It's not a canvas overhang. It's not a bolt-on feature. All of your railing gives it structure. It gives you good grab handles here. Brings your rocket launchers. They're right here at the edge. They're not pushed forward all the way at the front of the cabin. So I can just stand here and I can grab rods. Easy access to everything. You also got the rod holders on the side, so you got access to those. But the other part too is I find myself sitting right here on most days. I will troll and I'll have my kicker and throttle right here, and I'll have typically a second station screen. I like to put it up here. Some guys put it here, and then I just troll. Some put it on the transom, whichever. But now I'm steering my boat from back here, and I have full control, and I can see all my rods. I'm comfortable. I've got a blockade from any rain coming over, or maybe some shade here in the summertime. So I love this feature. I've started integrating this across the board on all of our boats. So every boat has an overhang. At the coastal, it starts at 30 inches and it goes and stays 30 inches through the Sea Raider and the offshore line. But this gives you just a lot more sunshade and weather protection. So I love this feature. But let's go hop on to number 8, which is right below our feet, self-bailing deck. Most of your boats, this is one of the things that makes the coastal so unique, is the deck. We have to raise the structure of the boat up, which is why you see on the coastal there's a higher side sheet. It's a taller side sheet, but you don't have as much cockpit depth. So a Pro Fish of our series actually has a deeper inside cockpit depth, so it's a little bit deeper here, but that's not to say that this is not very deep. Again, I'm 6 foot. This is super comfortable. I can fish along this, lean into it. I got great stability, but I've raised the deck up, and I had to raise the deck up to keep the deck well above the water line, and you have an angled drain out the back. So if you look along the sides, you have a gutter system. So as I'm working the washdown pump, in fact, I'll grab it here. And so if I've got the washdown pump in my hand and I'm working that washdown pump and I'm spraying the deck and getting tuna blood off the deck or crab stuff or whatever, it's going to run out to the outside gunnels, and it's going to go down at an angle out the back into the scupper drain, and it's going out the back of the boat. So it's a great thing to have, super easy to clean, and it's sitting it straight off the back of the boat. That's one of the things that makes the coastal really popular and very unique. Not a lot of boats in this size. In fact, there's really no other boats like the coastal in the market, which is why it is such a popular boat for us. But that's a big differentiator over it and the Pro Fisherman, but also across the board. The other part that I'm just going to add to this one is the diamond plate decking. I can't stress this. So this is something that gets hammered in a couple different ways. You're going to hear people that want to try to battle this option. While it's super shiny, you can kind of see, this is day one at the show. What happens with this aluminum, it's going to oxidize. It's actually going to kind of dull out, and you walking about the deck is going to kind of make it a little bit dingy. Not dingy in a bad way. It's just going to shut the shine down and give it just a little bit more of a flat finish. And that's going to keep it from really glaring in your face. I've had this on every boat that I've had every year for the past, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. And I've never been in the back of the boat being like, this is too shiny. I'm using it in saltwater. We're using the boats pretty heavily, and I've come to love this stuff. I've done welded plate deck, which is an option we can do. We can weld this down, and we can do non-skid that's painted down, or you can do this diamond plate. And I love this diamond plate. This diamond plate is standard on the coastal. This one in particular, screwed down. That's standard. We can weld it down and seal it up. We can kind of do whatever you're looking for. But the top of the diamonds, you want to come over here, Rosario, you can see it. It's kind of like a rasp. And so it gives you really good bite for non-skids. So if you've got halibut slime on the deck, if you got, you get into salmon mayhem and you got rods going off with silvers everywhere, kings, and you got salmon slime all over the deck, you're not going to slip around. You're not going to slide around. It's going to give you great traction. This is one of the best, most robust flooring that you can get. Any painted on non-skid, rolled on non-skid. It looks beautiful. It does require a little more maintenance. That's the right solution for a lot of people, and this is the right solution for a lot of other people. And this is just no nonsense, no maintenance. You can drop weights, you can drop things on the deck, and it just hits diamond plate. So it's not going to harm anything. So I really do love that. That's part of the sail bailing deck. That is a standard in the coastal. And now we're on to number 9. Okay, number 9, I'm coming back to the manifold we were talking about earlier, bilge pumps. You're gonna find a lot of manufacturers, they have upgradable options for a dual bilge pump, or maybe even a third. This is pretty rare. So again, I talked about this is a Pro Fish manifold system. A coastal is gonna have an added port coming into it, and it's gonna be a little bit bigger box. But these two inlets right here to the manifold is the high loop in. This is your bilge pump for your main hole. Then our offshore bracket. I was talking about how it's chambered, which means it's its own individual chamber. We still want protection in there. If your engine bolts were to leak, or something were to happen for some reason and you got water leaking into your offshore bracket, that bilge pump's going to start bilging that and keeping your offshore bracket clear of water as long as possible. And so that's going to be the third outlet. So you're going to have 3 bilge pumps in this boat standard. It's not an option. You don't have to add other stuff. You don't have to think about this stuff. We try to make it standard the best we can. That's going to give you added protection. Not only is a self-bailing deck going to be expelling water off the back of your boat and protecting you, but added 3 bilge pumps is really going to help protect it. And then having one of those in an offshore bracket in a sealed chamber is just going to protect that chamber from having any water collecting in that. And so that is an awesome thing that you're not going to see commonly on most boats. So now we're going to finalize it with number 10. All right, so number 10 is our battery system. This is commonly overlooked. One of the things in working with customers and building boats for the years I have been, people ask, does it have a battery switch? And you say yes, and that checks the box. I'm like, cool, great. We don't realize there's so many different versions of a battery switch. If you're just looking to make sure it's got a battery switch, well, today's day and age, almost everything does. But there's a major difference in the quality of the battery switches and what that actually does to your system. So we have what's called our dual battery management system that is standard on every boat that we build. Every boat, 21 foot all the way to a offshore. On the offshores, on the Sea Raiders, or on any twin engine configuration, if you want to do twins on a 22 Pro Fisherman, then you upgrade to what we call our triple bank battery management system, and that gives you banks. It's not about the number of batteries you have, it's about the isolated banks. This is a dual bank system. So you have two banks, you have house and you have start. This is a single engine application. It's not a twin engine application. Yeah, there's a kicker motor, but that doesn't mean it's twins. This is a single main propulsion application. So you need a standalone battery that only pulls and supplies power to that one battery. The second battery is for your house. That's going to give you all of the power for your garment electronics, your downriggers, everything else. Now, this system, not only does it have that switch that isolates it, so it's on and off. It's not one, not two, not all combined, none of that. This is on, meaning it turns everything on, but it keeps everything separate. Your Garmin screen's not going to pull from your Suzuki's needs or from your engine's battery needs. Your engine is not going to pull power from your house side. If you're trying to sit on anchor with your engine not running, you're going to have completely isolated systems. And so there's an emergency override to that, which combines the whole circuit. So if you say, you know what, my engine battery is dead, it's gone bad, I need to start my outboard, you flip that switch to emergency mode. And emergency mode is going to kick it on, and now it's going to use the house bank side. But you don't really need to do that very often. You can run in that, it can combine it all. That's what most battery switches are. It's not a problem. But if you can keep it isolated, that's fantastic. And so where you get the charge for your house side is with ACR. So in this boat, in every boat that we build, you have what's called an automatic charging relay. And that's a relay that's going to sense the voltage of your house battery and sense the voltage of your starting battery. And so if your starting battery is at full, it's saying 12.4 volts or even higher, and then all of a sudden your engine or your house battery starts saying 10.9 volts. It's going to notice that your house battery needs more voltage, and it's going to divert the charge from your house or from your engine on your engine start battery and move it over to the house side through the ACR system. And so it's going to maintain both of your batteries by your alternator on your outboard. And so you're going to have charging going to both. And so that's the system that we do. It's not just a on and all off switch. It's a fully isolated bank, gives you charging capabilities. We also, when you're running a kicker motor, we tend to run that. Most dealers do this, but we like to see it ran to the house battery. So while you're running your kicker motor, your kicker's got a small alternator on it. It's going to be producing some charge. It's going to give you trickle charge. The biggest thing with your battery systems to keep in mind, though, this is something that's heavily overlooked. Get a battery tender. Your engine and outboards will only give you a surface charge. You really need a deep charge, and the only way to do that is through a battery tending system or a trickle charger that you can plug into a 110 outlet. If you've got a bigger boat, short power works great. If you got just a plug with a 110 outlet you can plug and run an extension cord to, that's fantastic too. But making sure you get that tender on the batteries, it really gives you a deeper charge, because all you're getting on an outboard is a surface charge. You're not getting deep and giving it a really good, solid, hearty charge. And so that's super unique to us. Yeah, this is out there on bigger boats commonly, but you don't see that on smaller boats. And I say smaller boats, 25 foot, 21 foot, 22, 24, somewhere in there. That's where you see a lot of these all and off switches, 1, 2, the standard Percos you see out there. And so keep an eye on that. That is the minimum. That is what you do want. But this management system does give you another level. The other thing is there's a lot of ports here for access. There's not everything used here, but you got auto bilge. This is your breakers for trim tabs, your main breaker. But then you got a lot of slots here. So if you got downriggers, for instance, or you're running but you're running let's say Tanakum bowls, electric reels, you're gonna have Scotty or Canon plugs to plug those into, and that's a 30 amp breaker. You're gonna have 30 amp breakers lined up for every outlet. And so if those trip, you just come over and push it. You're not having to worry about a spade fuse or a glass fuse that's going to corrode. It's just a push button start to kick it back in gear. A lot of these electric motors, especially on your downriggers, is they don't know what the maximum power. It's going to pull as hard as it needs to pull. So that breaker is designed to protect the wiring, because if it goes over 30 amps and it continues to exceed, what happens is it starts to get too hot, it starts to melt your wiring and actually cause a fire. And so that 30 amp fuse is super important, but even better than that, and you're not going to be dealing with fuses all the time, is that breaker. And so That's all part of this management system. It's really a cool system. This is a dual bank. This is kind of the standard bank we do. This is what you're going to see on a 21 foot all the way through all the single engine applications, and it's a fantastic system. Dual engines, if you're wanting a 25 coastal like this and you want twin 150s on it, then we go to a triple bank management system, and then you got 3 batteries that you're gonna need to have. Each engine has its own starting bank, and then the house bank. Again, that has nothing to do with the number of batteries. It's banks. You have 3 banks, so you're gonna need a minimum of 3 batteries. You can run 5 house batteries if you can find enough room, but it's about the banks. It's about isolating those systems, and that's what's really important. So that was number 10. This is the Raider 2584 Coastal. Thank you so much for taking the time. If you're curious, we're gonna have these on every boat. Join us on YouTube, Raider Aluminum Boats, and see what we have to offer there. But thank you for taking the time, and have a great day.